James Oladipo Olukosi. I'm from Ekiti, basically in Ikoli local government area of Ekiti State. I've been in Lagos since December 1959. I was here when Nigeria got independent. Then I was a pupil teacher at Yaba Methodist School. I taught for many years at Yaba. Then from teaching, I crossed to the civil service. I came into civil service under defense. By that time, defense headquarters was at Tafawa Balewa Square. I remember vividly that when we were about to get independence, 4 teachers from our school, I'm included, we have to take our pupils from Yaba. We enter train, get down at Ido. At Ido, we march our pupils to Tafawa Balewa Square, where the independence ceremony took place. So for 3 good years, 1960, 61, 62, I was one of the teachers carrying the pupils from Yaba to Tafawa Balewa Square. I was in PR record office when the coup happened. I remember vividly, our commanding officer was an Igbo man. So we got to the office that day. He parked his car in front of the office. When we phoned, he was already at Enugu. That's how all Igbo people in our office deserted the office. As a result of their desertion, because majority of the account department were Igbo. Now there was a civil war. We are recruiting soldiers. Documentation became a problem. So one of the colonels was asked to establish a training school where we have to rush and get some of the officers trained. Now, I was a civilian then, but I was teaching at the Pen and Records office. So I came down, taught them. Small time, it was decided that, well, that those of us who have the qualification should be given conditional enlistment. So I was recruited as a soldier. I was given staff sergeant. So we were training some of the newly recruited officers, both junior and senior rank, about accounts, how to prepare accounts, how to do the documentation, how to give them number, and so on and so forth. So actually, I was audit clerk when I was posted to Pen and Records office. But when I crossed to the Nigerian Army, I became an instructor in the Nigerian Army. And at first was Pen and Record Training School. But later, it was annexed to Yaba College and become Nigerian Army School of Records and Accountancy. So I became the examination officer of the school until I left. I got to voluntary discharge, and that was 1978 August. So all of us, those of us who did not want to continue, were given pension. We became pensioners. But I was still very young. I saw an advertisement in the paper that they want somebody at Nigerian Institute of Oceanography and Marine Research, Victoria Land. So I applied. I was given the post of administrative officer. So I was there for almost 20 years, from 1978 to 1990, almost 20 years. So I was assisting the head of the administration. We had stations, mainly Port Harcourt, but we had the Sapele station, and Cocoa was in making before I left that place. That was my service in Lagos from December 1959 to 1999.
Thank you very much, sir. You have really been a long-time civil servant, and you have really done a lot in this country. So, sir, during all this period of time, how would you compare the civil service and the civil service of then and the civil service of this period? How would you really compare them together?
It's not comparable in the sense that there is no discipline again in the civil service. I remember I was, first of all, I was living at just behind Ajirome Exodus there. I was there, it was there I was living before I moved to Krikri Road on Apapa down there. But before 8 o'clock, I already at Babbage. So, but now you see them just anytime they could get to office, there's no problem. It wasn't like that at all. The civil service I was in was more disciplined, more responsible, and at the same time they're conscious of what they are doing. So you can't compare it at all. You see some of them, they don't get to office until 11 a.m. So, and you see, you cannot, punctuality at work is the most important thing. When you are not punctual, it means that your discipline instrument is violated. If you are not punctual, you cannot be regarded as a responsible civil servant. So punctuality is the first and the most important thing. It's one of the ingredients of responsibility in the service. So you can't compare it.
Thank you very much, sir. So during that period, you were actually working at the civil service. How was it really? How were you personally able to cope as a father, and how were you able to cope with your work and manage your home as a father?
See, I married 1965. I married. My wife was also working in the army. I was in the army. I was in the PR record office. My wife was in the signal, army signal. So, our first son, Barrister, was born 1956. Now, we were struggling. We were as I need to go to the office, my wife is at the same time going to office. So when I became an administrative officer, I usually tell some of my workers, I said, look, especially women who are lazy, and they say, we are taking care of their children, and their children is not doing. I told them, I have a wife, she's working, and there's never a time. As a result of a childbearing and all that thing, he absented himself from work. So I started coping with it until when the children were growing, they are still going to school, and we are working. We are working at the same time. The children are going to their school. They are combining everything. No problem at times. in most cases, I may, because he is already just around, it became news agency of Nigeria at this Dora here. This is very near here, but mine, I'm at Victoria Land. Maybe she will be the first person to get home, or maybe whoever comes first, whatever is the responsibility at home, you have to take care of it. At times when she's taking care of the small baby, I'm taking care of a grown-up one by trying to bath them, prepare their school fees, and everything. So we were combining. We hadn't much problem.
That is very great. So, sir, if I may ask you, as a father, there was a transition between being a father and a father-in-law. How did this really change you? Did this really changes you personally? You know, when you're a father, now you are now a father-in-law, you have somebody's family joining your family. How were you able to cope with that period?
You see, it's unfortunate that, you see, the problem, for example, as at now, all my children have married. I have their fathers and mothers as my in-laws. They themselves, they regard me as their in-law. So we exchange things. Whatever happened to me, happened to them. Whatever happened to them, happened to me. Whenever they have anything, an occasion in their various homes, I have to attend. So whenever I have occasion here, they have attention. So we interchange. As I'm father-in-law here, they are father-in-law there. And they have my wife as their mother-in-law here. We are having the mothers of my wife children as their in-law there. So it's just a changing of things. But what is important as far as marriage is concerned, especially in Yoruba land, is that when you marry somebody, automatically that family becomes a part of you. Because whatever happens, they have family, you have to take part. Unlike the type of marriages they are doing now, maintaining themselves within 1-2 days without knowing their background, they don't know their mother, they don't know father, and they pack to their house. It's not Yoruba culture at all. It is possible that whenever we want to marry, you have to know the mother, you have to know the father, you have to know the family. And as soon as you get married, automatically the family becomes your family. It's a common extended family because whatever happened to you, happened to them.
Based on what you have just said, with the high rate of young people indulging themselves in premarital marriage, let's put in this perspective, like if you actually have a son who actually gets down to a premarital marriage with a lady, how would you rather feel?
If
you have a son, now he actually engaged in premarital marriage, maybe he had a son without being married, or maybe where they are being courtship, they end up impregnating themselves, and how would you really feel about that child?
I've not got your...
Okay, what I'm trying to say now, you have your son married,
right.
But let's assume, fortunately, you have a son who actually got a child before wedlock for another lady. As a father, how would you feel?
As a father, it means that I'm put in a very tight corner because of these reasons. One, I don't know the father before their relationship resulted into having a child. I don't know the background. I don't know anything. Because it's not a very heavy marriage at all. Because traditionally, culturally, before my son marry anybody, I must know the father of that person. I must know the mother. I must know where they come from, which tribe, all this. But if suddenly a lady is pregnated and I mean that all those things I will not know. It is imposition of marriage. It means that the marriage is imposed on me. It's not accepted. Ordinarily, not accepted.
Okay, let's see this way. Okay, what would be your own personal decision?
Well, since it is an imposition, now I will not be able to disown the child because it's from my son. Now I will take it and see how I will be able to cope, to manage it. Because once, you see, that's why once there is a relationship that leads to childbearing between two persons, it's very difficult to just to cut. That's why I say it's an imposition. So, because whether you like it or not, the child is there. You can't kill the child, and automatically you are the grandfather of that child, no matter what you do. So, you have to patch up and see what you try as much as possible to see how much you can make out of that marriage and let them stabilize.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, in a situation like this, what would be your advice to young youths who are engaging in premarital marriage now?
Yes.
What would be your advice to them?
You see, unfortunately, you see, I've addressed youth because I'm a pastor. I counsel the youth in my church. Now, if you want a successful marriage, first of all, you have to depend on God to guide you. It means that you have to pray about it. You don't just want to jump on the street and get somebody and say you are marrying the person. No. You have to seek God's grace in leading you to a rightful girl to marry. That is the first step. If you got one, then you have to disclose to your parents. Let them know. Tell them, your mother and your brother, this is the person I'm proposing to marry. Then listen to your parents' advice. You see, there are so many things. Boys of nowadays will just gloss over. The thing is very simple. Which is not simple. Now, one, you have to find out. Your parent, as a father, you have to find out. You tell you, right? Let me go and find out. You go outside. Outside, you need to find out about the father of the girl you want to marry, the mother. Is it a broken home? That is the first thing. Is the person you want to marry, is it from a broken home? If it's a broken home, you know that's a problem. So, that is number one. Then, number two, you see, in the family, is there any hereditary something that can impair your marriage, like diseases? Though in some places you have leprosy, epilepsy in the family. Is there any disease in that family? Is it coming from a reputable home? Now, if you are marrying somebody whose father is a drunkard or is a drug addict, you know what? So all this you have to find out. What is the religion of that person? What is your own religion? What's your own religion? What is the religion? Will you be compatible religiously? Will the marriage be compatible? If it's having a marriage that the religion is antagonistic, you know, there will be a problem. Now, is it economically ready to marry? I see war. I see any war. These are some of the things you have to find out to know before you can say it. So after find all this, then finally you have to find the concept of the family. Is the family willing your son to marry their daughter? If there are cases where the father said never. Many years ago, when I was working, there was a lady in my office. It's an Igbo girl. He told me that they are going to marry. She and the husband, they left for. But to my surprise, she returned. When I said, "How is that married?" He said, "No." He said when they got home, her parents said that he couldn't marry that boy. See, you have to see the concept of the family. If your boy say you want to marry somebody, if the parents if they refuse, it means that you can't marry unless you don't want a successful, happy home. So you have to get the consent of the family. You have to consent of all the cultural, traditional things which may serve as an obstacle, must not be there. So all these are some of the things you have to take into consideration before you marry, and make sure that the person is working.
Thank you, sir. Sir, may I ask, what is that thing you like as a father, you used to do as a father, but becoming a grandfather, a father-in-law, you couldn't do them again? What's that thing that you really like when you're a father, but because you have to adjust to some things as a father-in-law, as a grandfather, what is that thing you really like about? What is that thing you couldn't do as a father when you were just a father, and when you become a grandfather and a father-in-law?
The first of all is financial responsibility. Now, if you are a father, you have just you can spare to do something, but where the family there's extension, then you don't have grandson. All these children are my grandson. Now, if their father and mother are not hardworking, they don't have work, they can't live on their own, if they are still depending on me, it's a financial burden. So these are where the problem comes. But if the parents are okay, they have work, and they can fend for themselves, the responsibility will not fall on the grandfather or grandmother. So, but where such a thing does not happen, it will become a problem, because you cannot be looking at them. You have to do certain things to help them out. This is where the problem is. But if they are sound, they are financially okay, and there's no problem, so no. But once there's problem there, definitely you know that you will have to bear part of the problem.
That's good. Sir, what is that thing you enjoyed being a father-in-law that you think you can't fight ordinarily being a father? And a father-in-law, what is that thing you enjoy that you think when you're a father you can't really find that?
I've not got.
Like, as a father-in-law now, what is that thing you enjoy about being a father-in-law? And as a father who has no in-law yet, what is that connection? What is that connection different that you enjoy about being a father-in-law, unlike being a father?
As a father-in-law, I've not got your.
Okay, now, as a father-in-law now, what difference do you think is, I don't want to call it different now. What do you enjoy most about being a father-in-law that you can't really find as a father? No, as a father, you only have your children. Right. As a father-in-law, you have other people's children coming to your family. But I think there is a sweet thing about being a father-in-law that if you are not a father-in-law, you can't get it as just a father.
Now, you see, when you just become a father, when you become a father-in-law, I sense not to get.
Okay,
that.
okay, let's leave that aside for now. Okay. What do you like about yourself, sir?
About
yourself. What do you about yourself? What do you like about yourself?
About myself.
Yeah.
What
do you really like about yourself? That
what I like about myself.
Yeah.
You see, by myself, you see, by my training, I like advising young men. For example, I'm the president of my town's progressive union in Lagos. So it is one of my responsibility to help them in my hometown. Now, it's you see this my house. It's just one Nigeria. It's because we have Yoruba, you have Igbo, you have Christians, we have Muslims, you have everything. We're almost about 100 people. So I like to be among people of different people to coordinate them and make them live together. If you ask anybody around here, when you say Oluwa, they know me.
Yeah.
When you say we are going to, even that day, I was surprised one day. I was at Okoko. I was in the bus stop. Then I just see some boys say, Ogoluwa. I say, at Okoko here. At times I enjoy when I wear Ogoluwa. At times when I even that I'm trekking from the church, I'm coming the night. You see some people call. You see, I want to make friends with people. I want people to live very happily, friendly. You hardly see anybody quarreling in my house here. If I tell you, my first tenant, 1978, is still there. 1978 tenant is still there, still living with me. You see, because I don't want to, anybody I live with, I make him happy. That's why so many of them, see some 30 years, some 22 years, they're still living here. So what I like is that wherever I'm staying, my environment, the people are friendly. And anybody, I want to be identified as somebody who is a peaceful man, very peaceful. And I want to live so.
Thank you very much, sir. But sir, what is that difference between your days and today? What is that difference you see there? Doing when you were young and these days of our modern days, what is that difference you see there?
The difference is so wide. You see, when I came to Lagos, that was 50-something years ago now. Those days, there's no problem. I was living very near in Lagos Island. Even at 12 p.m., just almost 8 o'clock, you see, we will trek from our home, we go to, we call it Etiosa by that time, where the general post office is there.
Okay.
Right? They built there's bathroom, everything. You will just stroll there, take a bath. Nobody will disturb you. We trek from Lagos Island to where is Bar Beach now. This was swamp. There's one hotel at the Bar Beach police station. There was one hotel there in the bush there. Nobody will touch you. My wife, when my wife was staying with her mother at Ibutimeta, I was living at Malu Road here. When I went there, I will be there until around 12. I ride my bicycle. It's my bicycle. I had one bicycle there. I rode my bicycle from Ibutimeta. In the night, only Malu and some people who came to drink guguru and there you see them walking across. Nobody will touch. Very peaceful atmosphere. But now, about 2 days ago there, we couldn't sleep from 3 a.m. until 6. You will have gunshot, boom, boom. So there's a wide gap. between now and the life we lived those days, it was very peaceful life, very peaceful. But now, it's a hell. If it were possible, those of us who live 1950 here, now, we would, if there's another war we can just cross to, we would have left you here because it's intolerable. Intolerable.
Thank you. So, sir, may I ask, what is your best childhood memory? Your best childhood memory. That moment you're a child, like, what is that moment you really want to remember that you really enjoyed most when you're a child?
What I enjoy most?
That best moment during your childhood, when you were still young, maybe you were still like.
You see, when I was young, unfortunately, I brought myself up. My father died when I was very young. My father died in 1954. Nobody to care for me. I care for myself. I pay for my school. I work hard. Those days, if we went for labor, we only got 4 pence. You do 4 pence a day. Now, I wasn't schooling in my town. I wasn't very far from my town. These 4 pence with the yam we got is what we use and eat until the next week. So I brought myself up. Even when I was in school, when I was in seminary, those of us who has nobody to take for us, the seminary provide work. We go and cut grasses for 2 hours. 2 hours between 4 and 6. That is 8 pence. That is what we use for pocket money. Can nobody give? I've never got any pocket money in my life. I trek, I do everything. So I've enjoyed depending on myself. You know, by the time I marry into one room. I marry into one room. So I was telling my tenant, I know you can become anything, provided you are prepared to work. I don't depend on anybody. Although I have some scholarship which help me a bit, but basically I want to work myself. I won't depend on my work. I depend on myself. I don't want to depend on anybody. So, and I work. I work hard work. I don't have time to. Some of the study that I did private studies. Nobody to do this. That's why you see, I have my small library here. I have in my village. I go there. I don't want. If I have problem with anything, I want to be able to go into book and find solution. So I enjoy reading, everything, writing. I've just finished my town's history. I'm still preparing another one. So, I want to keep myself busy anytime. If I want anything, if I can't go to the encyclopedia, I don't need to go to library every time. I try to work. So that's enjoy. I enjoy to work. I work every time. Again, I value my religion. I've just returned from church. I belong to different organizations. You know, I was the chairman of this community for many years. I was the chairman. Tried to put people together to work for the community. So I enjoy working every time. Work. I hate living with lazy people.
So, sir, what will you term as your lowest point in life? When you were so down and you felt like, wow, why is this life like this? What is that lowest point in your life you could probably remember?
That
your lowest point in life? That
the lowest. You see, it is now I have thinking about life because nothing is impressive now. Nothing. Politics is terrible. Even religion. When you go to church and you see what some people calling church leaders are doing, you are sad about it. Everything is depressing. Everything now. Everything. I don't enjoy anything now because nothing appeals to me. Because the way everything is being run is not attractive at all.
What would you call your greatest fear?
My greatest
fear?
Fear?
Yeah.
Well, greatest fear. That what will happen. My greatest fear for Nigeria is disintegration. Unless God help us, Nigeria will integrate from the way I'm looking at the disintegration. According to Isita Jembe, there was that I don't pray that we say there was one country sometimes ago called Nigeria. So that's my greatest fear.
Okay, sir, what would be your advice to the government on this issue?
You see, the problem we are facing here is because we adopted a constitution, a government which you cannot fund. That is presidential system of government. Nigeria, the corruption there in the government is terrible. Everything is lobbying. Everything. But when we are in a parliamentary system of government, you are not facing this stuff. So, unless we can curb corruption, and under this present system of government, it is difficult, if not impossible. We have to restructuring to be done. You cannot. I was one of those people, the first, what do I call it? The first casting of vote. That was 1952 by Western Region. I represented we call it shadow election. I represented my community to do that, to do shadow election, to go and vote. The first vote in Nigeria. But what do you have now? What do you have now? You can't do anything right. It's money. Everything right. You can't do anything right unless it's money. So only God will save us. I don't know.
Thank you, sir. But sir, before we this thing, what would be your advice to the youths out there and your community in general?
The youth should not. You see, the youth, they are looking for money. They don't want to work. You see, at the Nigerian Institute for Sonography and Marine Research, where I worked, I was a personnel officer for 20 years. I know our youth are not prepared to work. That is the problem. They are not prepared to work. When they are looking for work, and once they get that job, they are not prepared to work. So This man said it's hard work. America. The greatest in America is hard work. Work every time. I was with a missionary, American missionary for many years. No, you work. It's hard work. You work. The youth to learn to work. The youth work. You see all of them. See them. They put their trouser. Put their trouser like this. You see them walking like this. The trouser is here. The pant is here. What is that? Then they be walking like this, looking like this. How could somebody be serious and be doing that? You should go to them. You see them smoking their Igbo there. Young boys who should find something to do. We are not prepared to work, and that is the problem. We want, and we as parents, we want to have the best thing of life. We want to be riding the best car. We want to be in the best house, but you are not prepared to work. You see, it's terrible. So I advise young men, if Nigeria is to remain like Nigeria, the youth should work. You see all them with their girlfriend. I just look at them. Somebody who doesn't get work, you don't have any work. And the girls are so terrible. That is they think that is life. I just look at them. They think that is life. That is life. Somebody, that's why they are deceiving them. How could somebody you don't know, you have not seen, because you see it on Facebook, you run from several miles, you come meet him for one place. What kind of life is that? Somebody, even the person, even you see, you are in the same street, you see how they behave. Somebody who don't even know the background, you don't want, you say you should meet him in one hotel, you park, just go there. Is that life? I have 2 daughters, I thank God. I was telling them, go and belt up. And fortunately, this one, this is my first daughter, is graduated from, fortunately, the least I tell you is who and all of them, they are graduates. Master, this is the certificate I got from Lagos State government. From annual youth this, I competed. I took 4th position. That is the certificate from Lagos State government. All of them, we brought our children there. They interviewed them. They know they are working. My first son, that's my first son. He's a barrister. He's a general manager stroke legal personnel. General manager legal is the secretary for that company. This is the last one is the practitioner, the legal practitioner. My first daughter is in the record office. My second daughter is working in UBA. You say you work hard. Not that you depending on one young man who has nothing. Going about, you are running after him. You see them passing here every day. Especially these are communities, giving birth to a child every day without responsibility, without not caring for them. So we have to, it's hard work. Let us tell your people they have to work hard. Not that the countries that are the greatest in Nigeria, in the world is America. And the thing is the hard work. They work every time. If you work with the Americans, you know that the Americans are working. The missionary I work with is the missionary for our area. He's a carpenter. He's a driver of his vehicles. He's a repairer of his vehicle. He's a repairer of his generator. He's everything for himself. As far back 1950 in Ekiti. He's everything. And he's lecturing us in the class. Before you see him with his tractor in his farm. You don't have anything here, you'll be getting anything. You see, unless we are prepared to work hard, how many young people are working here? How many? See them running about, doing nothing. They are so I don't know what to call them. They come to say, Baba, give us something. I just look at them. At going to 88, you want me to be feeding you on what? 88, you see them. At times when I say I ask the tipper to bring fillings and there, the top 50, I say we want to get work. They want to get money. Is that life? So unless Nigeria prepare to work, I don't see any good thing for us.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a nice time talking to you. But before we go, what is that object you can't do it when you are at home?
The object?
You can't do it. There's something you always like to be with, maybe when you're at home, that you can't always do it when you're at home.
You see, I read paper every time. You see? I read, I write, I read and write. Those are those things I cannot do without. If you have any of my children, because when I'm reading, when you are talking, I don't even listen to you. So I read and I write every time.
Thank you.